In this part 2 video, I completely rebuild the front seats, including custom foam work and lots of hiccups from the part supplier. In part 1, I tore the seats down to their frames. After that, I sprayed the old burlap with isopropyl alcohol. It wasn't stinky or anything, I just wanted to make sure it was good and clean. The next day, I sprayed it with Nature's Miracle and again allowed it to sit overnight. On the third day, I aired out the burlap in direct sunlight for a few hours. Meanwhile, I media blasted the seat frames. They weren't really rusty, but I'm picky, so I stripped them to bare metal. Then I sprayed the seat frames with 2 coats of gloss black Rust-Oleum automotive enamel. With the frames all prepped, I could begin rebuilding the seats. Here I'm attaching the 2 square pieces of burlap to the front corners of the seat bottom frame. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was doing it wrong. In this clip from the teardown video, you can see that the corner pieces are supposed to be clipped to the base of the seat frame, but I mistakenly attached them to seat springs. As you'll see later, I corrected this mistake, but only after I had already upholstered both seats. Anyway, let's keep going for now. Here I'm attaching the fresh burlap with 1 hog ring per side. The burlap should be free of wrinkles, but shouldn't be stretched tight. Now this paper-coated listing wire faces down, and it doesn't really seem to get hog ring to anything. Only these outer edges of the burlap were attached to the seat frame. As I did with the back seats, I'm reinstalling the original burlap over the new burlap because it has weight distributing wires woven through it. Okay, now we're ready for felt. I'm using felt scraps that my wife gave me. This fabric store felt is thinner than automotive upholstery felt, so I doubled it up 2 layers thick. So this here is the old cushion that I pulled out, and as you can see, it's a little rough. This part here is very stiff, and I think it's lost some of its depth. I'm getting maybe 1.5 inches, to not even 2 inches. I'm going to start with this piece of dense seat foam. I'm going to use this foam to create the flat part of the seat, and then I'll use other foam to build up these sides and the front edge. So I'm going to do a rough trace. Then we can cut this out. Sorry. Let me show you the other way. There's a good old bread knife. So what I plan to do is take 3 pieces of this linen and glue them onto the sides and the front of the cushion, and then tuck it under to hog ring it to the frame of the seat. And from there, I can build out the rest of the cushion to get the shape that we need. So let's do a little measuring. So we'll make an 8-inch strip. Give me plenty of fabric. Let's put 40. 1 foot each. $18 inches. All right. I think I should start with the front. So I'm using this Loctite MR5426 headliner adhesive. I hit a seat. Oh man. Take it over. Let's do a side. Let's do outside, like so. Probably worth pointing out that the back edge of the cushion doesn't cover this back piece here. It just comes right up to the edge of it. Okay, I'm just going to clip onto some of these seat springs. Here, same deal. See, I'm just hooking on like the low points on those curves. I bought this secondhand cheese grater from the Salvation Army store in Red Wing. It works great for shaping foam. You'll be seeing a lot of this cheese grater going forward. Okay. It should run. 6 inches. Okay. We got to make some cuts for the listing house. You see those 2 gray flaps on the underside of the seat cover? I need to make a corresponding slot for each flap to pass through the foam and reach the seat frame below. Skill butt, that should be the trick. because I should have done it before I hog ringed the darn thing on. After a quick test fitting of the seat cover, it was obvious that the foam was way too bulky. I needed to bring out the big guns. And so begins the lengthy process of sanding the foam to the proper shape, periodically interrupted to test fit the seat cover. I don't know if we're going to need the additional half-inch. That's not bad. Once I was satisfied with the shape of the cushion, I whipped up a second seat bottom, following the same steps as before. I worked on the two seat bottoms in parallel, measuring them periodically to make sure they matched. It's higher. Let's do some measurements. I think it's too bulky on the front. I think I gotta bring that in. I continued shaping and test fitting the two seat bottoms, fine-tuning their foam until I was satisfied with their fit. That's better. Still a little lumpy right there. Sticking out. Let's see how close we can get on this other guy. Knock down the front. Just want to make sure I'm getting them even. Still might knock this guy down a little bit. Let's see how we look on this side. But that's sticking out a little much yet. Knock that down some more. Maybe knock this guy down. Okay. Somehow I'm a little high right here. I don't know why. At this point, I thought I was ready to proceed with the final installation of the seat bottom covers. I still hadn't yet realized that I incorrectly attached the corner pieces of burlap. I went ahead and installed both seat bottom covers. Then I noticed my little burlap mistake and had to remove many of the hog rings that I had just installed. One hog ring goes through this hole here, and one ring goes through this loop here. I repositioned the burlap squares and correctly fastened them to the frame. Then I reinstalled the hog rings. With this fix in place, I assumed I was done with the seat bottoms, but as you'll find out later, these seat covers wouldn't stay installed for long. So, the cushion is in actually pretty good shape. As you can see, it's springing right back. The only part of it that I don't really like is the upper outside corners. And these apparently got, more sun and rain, perhaps, I don't know. But it's still squishy. The only problem is when you put the seat cover on, there's a bit of a sag right here. So what I'm thinking of doing is patching this foam. What I can actually do is cut out a chunk of this and glue in a new piece of foam and then just shape it. So let's do it. I don't want to cut into this so much. So I'm going to try to keep some of this here and cut above it. Normally I would use one thick piece of foam to patch this, but I was running low on foam scraps, so I had to make do with smaller pieces. This will be my reference. I'm going to try to recreate that basic shape. Nice. I think I have to stabilize this cut here. That's a lot. A lot of glue, man. I messed that up. That's so nice. Get this. This thin layer of foam will help stabilize that break in the cushion. I'll leave a little extra hanging over the edges because I can just trim that off, of course. I would have added this new foam anyway, even if the seat blend didn't have a split in it. The new foam fills in the impressions from the old seat cover and provides a clean surface for the new seat cover to settle into. The next thing is to put on this linen that goes on the bottom, the sides, and the top. So off camera, I cut 2 strips, 4x20 for the bottom. And that's based on just measuring the old ones. Looking at our reference, you can see that the fabric is glued only on the bottom edge and then it just flops. So it's not glued on this face here. So all the way around to the front, or the top, I mean. So this one is a little different because it overlaps. Actually, there's no glue on the back side. Only on this visible side. All right, so top piece. 3 inches by 19 inches for the top. And it looks like it just went right about down the middle line for gluing it. Now, onto the sides. Same sort of deal, about a 1-inch glue with 3 inches slack. And these side pieces are 4 inches by 17 inches. So I cut 4 of them, 2 per seat back. All right, that's good. I'll pop this up. Get this out the way. All right, so you can still see the old impressions on here from when this was on the seat frame. So I'm just gonna put it back the way it was. And there are no hog rings on this. It just sits like that. And notice that the listing is towards the frame. And when you put this on, you got to get this flap over the frame, of course. Like that. Flip the whole thing over. Get all these flaps out. So that's basically how it goes together. Now on these top hog rings, the hog ring actually goes through the foam a little bit. You can see how there are dimples here that line up with those holes on the frame. And then the hog ring goes through both the cloth and the foam. Just like that. I want to do that. I think I'll just capture this. After the top of the cushion is fastened, I attach the side panels. I work my way down, alternating from side to side. This ensures that the foam stays centered on the frame. It's hard to see, but I'm wrapping the linen around the 3 metal rods that run down each side of the frame. Just like with the top edge of the frame, this bottom edge has 5 holes stamped into the metal to accommodate hog rings. So I'm going to trim that down. And I think I should take that too. You can see this corner is already up against the frame. It's still a little baggy here. I'm not really digging that fit. It's like no amount of pulling this back is going to make a difference. I looked at photos online of other 66 Charger front seats, and it's not like they're pillowy right here. They don't push way out because the seat has to be able to flip forward. And if these are too bulky, the seat will, kind of impinge on the seat back will impinge on the bottom. Yeah, that bagginess is just not going to go away. Then it dawned on me to compare this new seat cover against the original Dodge seat cover, and I quickly spotted the problem. The PUI seat covers were designed incorrectly and simply weren't ever going to fit. This wasn't the only defect in the product. There was also a bad pleat on one of the seat backs and even on one of the seat bottoms. I reported these defects and waited 2 months for PUI to reply. To their credit, they offered to replace the defective seat covers and requested one of my original Dodge seat covers to use as a model. I removed the seat bottom covers that I had already installed and shipped everything back to PUI. In the meantime, I finished preparing the seat backs for upholstery. After another 2-month wait, I received my new seat covers. And I could already see that there was still a problem. So here's the problem I'm dealing with. You can see this old seat cover has this notch which accommodates this arm here. And the new seat covers also have a notch, but it's not deep enough. I mean, if you look at the side vinyl, it's the length of my index finger. Side vinyl, at best a joint and a half. I notified the vendor that PUI was still making the seat covers wrong and asked what we should do. They were unwilling to assist me at this point. My wife suggested that we pull out the stitching from the bottom flap, move the flap up to the next factory seam, then resew it there. For some reason, this just happened to give us the exact 1.5 inches that we needed. For the seams that were too thick for her sewing machine, my wife hand-stitched them using the original holes from the manufacturer. As soon as she was done, I test-fitted the cover. And it finally fit. Thankfully, this meant I could get started on the final installation of the seat covers. Here, I'm carefully aligning the new seat covers to my custom seat cushion for 2 reasons. First, I need to make sure that the corners and seams of the seat cover line up correctly with the corners and edges of my cushion. Second, I'm preparing to cut the listing pockets. These 2 gray flaps have to extend down through the slots in the cushion to reach the seat frame below. Here I'm snipping the listing pocket to the length of the slot. Next, I insert the metal listing wire into the pocket. By the way, these wires don't come with the new seat covers. You have to keep the old ones from the original seat covers. Then I shove the listing wire all the way down through the slot until it contacts the seat frame. Same process for the second flap. Right. At this point, the listing wires that I just inserted into the seat cover have to be fastened to the paper-coated listing wires in the seat frame using hog rings. Here I'm reaching into a slot in the foam, grabbing the listing wire of the seat cover and pressing it up against the seat frame's listing wire. Once I have them positioned close together, I can clamp a hog ring around both wires, thereby connecting the seat cover to the frame. There were originally only 3 hog rings per listing wire, but I'm installing 5 rings per wire to spread out the strain. With the listing wires attached, it's time to fasten the outer edges of the seat cover to the frame. In preparation for stretching the cover into position, I like to gently warm it up with a heat gun. This makes the vinyl more pliable and easier to work with. At this stage, right before the outer hog rings are attached, is your best opportunity to manipulate the seat foam into position with the cover. I start attaching the seat cover to the center front of the frame, then work my way around to the back, alternating sides as I go. This helps keep the seat cover centered as I work toward the back. Flip you to be this way. Yeah, that's pretty good. Here I'm making openings for the two metal studs that poke out on each side of the frame. These studs support the seat back when it's in its normal upright position. I'm tucking the loose end of the plastic piping down between the side vinyl and the metal frame. You can cut off this extra piping, but I prefer the cleaner look of having it tucked in. These last two hog rings are the most challenging because each one gets clamped around both the side vinyl piping and the back flap piping. Seat bottoms are done. Now we can cover the seat backs. As I did with the seat bottom, I'm making sure that the seams and corners of this new seat cover line up correctly with the edges and corners of my old seat bun. This also gets me set up to cut the listing flaps. I messed up a little on this flap by cutting it too short. Come on. But that's easy to fix. That's better. I'll take this part off. I removed the excess material at the top of the seat cover so that it doesn't bunch up and show through the vinyl. You can see on the original, they didn't keep this pocket running all the way up. That's why I cut it off on the new one. Okay. I pay close attention to how the seat bun is fitting into the corners and seams of the cover. I'm pushing the listing wires down against the seat frame, getting them ready to receive hog rings. I've got my left hand inside a slot in the foam, pushing the seat cover's listing wire up against the listing wire of the seat frame. Then I push against both listing wires with the hog ring until they're as close as I can get them before clamping down. With the listing wires fastened, you can see how the two seams in the middle of the seat are now pulled back slightly into the foam. I'm beginning to notice that the piping on the seat cover is wavy. The top margin of the seat cover is clipped into the same 5 holes that were used to attach the foam to the seat frame. I'm clipping the vinyl to the same 3 metal rods that I attached the linen to. When clipping the side panels, I don't start in the corners. I choose a location that gives me better control over how the side panel stretches over the foam. Plus, the corners can be tricky. If you pin down the adjacent vinyl first, it's a lot easier to tidy up its corners. As I did with the seat bottoms, I like to tuck the ends of the piping under the vinyl. Flap on the piping provides a nice place to tuck away the edge of the foam cushion so that it doesn't peek out from behind the seat cover. To tuck this in. Should have done that first. This piece of fabric is extra. This is not required on here. I could cut it off, but as I did on the other seat, I just left it like this and it worked fine. It doesn't really interfere with anything. Goofy waves in the piping. Well, hopefully those will relax out. Well, with the upholstery done, I think we have the hardest part behind us. Now it's time to reassemble everything. All right, the first step to reassembling these seats is to make a hole to receive the hinge bolt. I can feel it from the inside. The bolt hole is right there. I'm just gonna make a semicircular cut on both sides. Bolts in, just got to line up the holes. And so you start off with this big shoulder bolt, metal washer, and a rubber washer. And these bolts take a 3/4 socket. These don't need to be super tight. They just bottom out. So each of these panels is held on by 2 of these interior screws with the flange and one panhead screw in the middle. Now I like to try to find the screw holes. So you see there's a screw hole in the front and one in the back, and those have to actually pass through some vinyl. So I like to try to find the holes in here first. There. Let's look at this guy while I'm at it. There we go. There's a little bit of a lip back here, a flange that has to hook over this back corner on the seat bottom. So that kind of has to go in place first. And then this end, I don't think that is the actual hole. Now we gotta get this back one in. After those two screws are in on the ends, I got this panhead screw, goes into this middle bracket. Side. Now we can put those tracks back on. This is the driver's side seat, so this handle goes on the outboard side of the seat. This goes on the inboard side. So first thing is to feed that lever through this hole and then line up the bolt holes. I like to get this 7/16 bolt threaded first. And a 1/2 inch nut. So the nut inside there is a 1/2 inch. And this bolt takes a 7/16 socket. Good. So this is kind of interesting because this lever's way up here, this one's up here, and these are back down here. It's worth noting that one of these linkage rods is shorter, so it stands to reason that the shorter one should go on this side. Since these hookup points are towards the back of the seat, that means that we have a longer reach forward to this hook. I'll show you what I mean. So let's see, we're gonna hook you on first because you're a little harder to get at. So you pinch that together, slide the little spring on, and that locks it on. All right, so you can see that this linkage is really sloppy. It has a lot of slack in it, but that's taken up with this strap. I'm gonna hook this little S hook onto the strap, and then hook the S hook onto that J hook. And then in theory, that works. The shorter one gets to go over here. I'll hook you one first. And even though this has a J hook up here, it's just not used. There wasn't a strap on this particular rod. I don't know why. All the way back. That one moves. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah, we gotta put this spring on. There's a small hole on the edge of that rail, the part that doesn't slide. Tuck it in like that. There we go. So all the underneath stuff's done. The last thing to do is put this back shell on. So this part's pretty easy compared to everything else. You can see we got these two metal loops on the inside of this cover, and then there are two tabs up here that receive them. Push these guys. Make sure the cover's real close to the seat. Shove it up. There. You can feel how it just tightens up as you push it. Then we got to find these screw holes down here. Seems happy. Let's try this one. I think that's it. Nice. Now, for reasons unknown, this seat has 3 screws in the bottom edge. I don't know that this middle one is original or not. That seat only ever had 2, but I'm gonna go ahead and add this 3rd one back for what it's worth. And there it is. Oh yeah, and this 3rd screw is it's a pan head. So I have a feeling at some point somebody added this 3rd screw, non-original. It's all the way in. Well, there you go. As I said, I'm not in love with these seat covers. These seams here are pretty wavy. I'm hoping maybe they'll relax out. I did forget one thing. This little lever knob that goes on the seat release, and I only have one of these. The car didn't come with 2, it's missing one. So if you happen to have one lying around that you can part with, let me know. So I'd like to put it on my passenger seat. Anyway, this is how this goes on. There's a little set screw on the bottom, and there's a slot here. The set screw goes down, and the slot slides onto the arm like that. Then use a 3/32 Allen wrench to snug up that set screw. These guys are ready to go back into the car, but I can't do that until I work on this first, console and shifter. So that'll be my next video, I think. Thanks for watching.